Hi, I'm Heather.
I'm Haley.
And we're the Dunnit Sisters, a Kansas City true crime podcast. This episode is on the double homicide of Michael Brewer and Keith Wasmer. We spoke with Michael's mom and stepdad, Lisa and Martin Patrick, and they told us about them and what happened on that day.
So I guess I'll start with Michael, who was my son. He was 29 at the time. He had his demons in life himself, but he was kind of doing a whole lot better, trying to get on the straight and narrow. He was a father. He has two children, one of which at the time nobody knew about, not even Michael. And he was just he would give you the shirt off of his back if you asked him for it. He would do anything for you. Very protective of mommy and all of his siblings and nieces and nephews. Just a good guy.
Michael was a good kid all around. A wrestler in high school. Very good wrestler. Two-time All-American. Loved his nieces and nephews and his brothers and sisters. I mean, would do anything for them. And, he was a very lovable kid. I mean, he was just, I wouldn't say a kid. He was a very lovable adult. I remember back when, I'd sit there and I would need help with like mowing a yard, or we even had a next door neighbor. She was on her own, and anything that this lady needed, Michael was there for her. I mean, just, it would be snowing out. Michael would be out there shoveling the snow for her. Early in the morning, he would be out there cleaning her car for her to make sure she could make it out to go get groceries. I put him underneath my wing on kind of figuring out how to work on cars correctly. And there's plenty of times that I have sat there and told Michael, hey, tomorrow we're going to be working on a car. By the time I'd wake up, I would have my coffee already made, tools in the trunk. Come on, we got to go to Pick and Pull. And that kid going down to Pick and Pull, he would be out there all day long if you'd let him. He would take one of the grandkids and he would put her in a stroller, and I mean, he would be gone, walking around and bring her back. And dogs, oh my God. We have his dog, Chevy, and he brought her home one day. And we're all like, no dogs. But she's so cute. So, of course, he won our hearts, and he got to keep her. And this dog was his life. This dog would sleep with him. I mean, no matter where he would go, Chevy was with him. I mean,
do you have the dog?
Oh yeah, we've got Chevy. And she's never been the same since then. Michael and I, we'd sit there and we'd play PlayStation and we'd play football and we'd be competitive. And Chevy would get on my lap and start growling at me and da-da-da. And he would sit there and, get him, Chevy, get him. And I'm like, no, shut up. Lose my train of thought. And of course, Michael would win. And I'd be all like, yeah, it's because of your dog. And of course, that's not, we tried to tell him that was the reason, but he's very competitive. He was always been competitive. He loved being outdoors, and all the kids around he would be out there playing football with them, kickball. He would go down to the playground and play basketball with them. He taught Carlos, his little brother, how to skateboard and how to what they call drop in. And he was just he just loved being outdoors and being with kids. And it's heart crushing of what happened. It's devastating because Michael didn't have a bone in his body to hurt anybody. And everybody that he would come around, everybody loved him.
I think that everybody that knows Michael and knows about his case, most of the details, know that Michael was an addict. And I think that we just want everybody to know, just like every other mother, Michael was more than an addict,
Absolutely.
Just because he was an addict, Michael had a rough life, very rough life. Just a lot of things, and the drugs were his escape, but that didn't make him a bad person.
And I also want to say for the record, just because you're an addict does not mean you're
bad. You're a criminal.
You're sober at times also.
Right.
And you do have good intentions also. I mean, there are times where just because you're an addict does not mean you're 24 hours not there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes. Right.
Doesn't mean you don't love somebody and you're not there for your family or anybody else out there in the real world. It weighs heavy on my heart.
Right.
That
you feel people just like wave them off, like, okay, addict, that's it. Boom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what Grandview Police Department did to us. And I argued with the Grandview Police Department for, oh my gosh, over an hour, because they told me it is not illegal for a 29-year-old man to go off on a bender. And I kept trying to convey to them, look, you don't know my son and mine relationship. My son called me daily, 4 or 5 times a day. I knew where my son was. I knew when he was out getting high because he always told me what he was doing. No matter what it was that he was doing, he told me.
Whether we like it or not.
And they just kept telling me he's an addict. He's probably off on a bender and he'll come home and blah, blah, blah. And then, 2 days later, they find Keith's car and no Michael and Keith. And nobody told me that. And, it's just because he's an addict.
And I can say a mother's intuition, you don't ever want to cross. I mean, I kind of, when she woke up and said, something's wrong, I kind of in the back of my head is like, well, I'm not going to go that route yet. And I didn't want to believe it.
Right.
From the get-go, something's wrong. Something's happened to him. Somebody needs to help. I just wish people could see exactly how Michael, it was, heck, if he was here right now and I'd say, hey, Michael, I need this tree chopped down right now. It wouldn't, no hesitations. He would even go do it with an axe. That's the way Michael was. He loved doing things with his hands. He loved being outside. You could barely ever get him inside.
Anything for his mommy.
Anything. Mom, what do you need me to do? Mom, I can do that for you.
Mom, you ain't carrying those groceries in the house.
And Mom asked him, and he would be right there. It didn't matter what he was doing, who he was with. Mom calls him and says, I need your help. He was right there.
And his daughter and his little brother was his world.
Yeah.
And his dog.
And his dog.
Yeah.
I think his dog might have even came first.
I want people to kind of get into, this guy did have a life, had a family.
Right.
Had people that cared about him. And then look what happened. Just because,
And they didn't just take Michael and Keith's life.
No,
they have changed the lives of so many people.
Yeah. They don't understand the family that goes through all of this. Our marriage has, it's hard. It's hard at times. She gets so depressed, and you don't know what to do. You don't know what to say. You don't know how to act. And then you get. I mean, it
So much,
affects everything.
yeah,
It's not just the person that you did. It's it's everybody. I mean, even grandma, she is devastated. The shoulda, woulda, couldas. The I shoulda said I love you more. Let bygones be bygones. It's devastating, and it is a true deal that you shouldn't have to bury your kid. Your kids need to bury you.
right.
And having to go with all of this is just, it's not right.
And then there's Keith. I really didn't know Keith great. I mean, Charlesy was dating him. Charlesy, my daughter, and him went to school together. They grew up together, went to the same town, but I really didn't know Keith well. He also had, his own issues in life. And him and Charlesy had just had a 3-week-old when they were murdered. August 6th of 2018.
Okay.
They got that phone call and they went out to Longview. Michael was living with Charlesy. They're in Grandview, staying with Charlesy. And Keith was staying with Michael's ex-girlfriend in Belton. Keith had called Michael and said Sam Delosier was stranded out at Longview Lake and needed a ride. His car wouldn't start and he needed a ride. So Michael told Charlesy they were going out there. They went out there. Charlesy was on the phone with Keith. And Keith said, let me call you right back. I got to call Sam and tell him we're here. And that's the last anybody heard from him. But at 6:42 was the last contact anybody had with Michael and Keith. And Michael's phone, Keith's phone, and Sam's phone all went straight to voicemail after that phone call. And then Michael's ex-girlfriend, Stormy, had called that night. It was later that night, and said she was in hysterics. And she said, oh my God, Michael wasn't supposed to be there. Michael wasn't supposed to be there. You see, Keith had just gotten a big insurance settlement for like $150,000. And it's my thought that, and I can't prove any of it, but it's my thoughts that Stormy, who's a drug dealer, had Keith set up for that money, but he didn't have that money at the time. He'd already blown through it. And Michael wasn't supposed to be there. And then the 7th, we filed the missing persons report. They told us that we couldn't do it. We had to wait 48 hours to go back home and to come back the next day. So on the 9th, we did the paperwork for the police report. That's when they told Charlesy that, it's not illegal for a drug addict to go off on a bender. So then I don't remember what day we all went out to Longview for the search party to look for him. But I do know that a couple of times throughout the time period they were missing, I called Grandview Police Department to get an update on the search, if they found anything, and I was told, well, we put them in the computer system. We're really not looking for them. But if they get picked up with any charges, we'll let you know.
I remember talking to Charlesy. I remember her on Facebook that day.
Right.
I don't know. She touched my heart, the way she was pleading for just anyone to help her, help her find them. I don't know. It was heart-wrenching. So I was trying to talk with her, I remember on Facebook, about getting some of the information out, what the car looked like and all that.
At that time, Charlesy, she was 24 right now. So she was pretty young. She had just had the baby. And she had contacted the police department, and, pretty crappy of the police department. They told her, that it's not against the law for a druggie to go on a bender, and, just stuff like that. So she was really feeling discouraged about it all. And, even I think it was day 3, they found Keith's car in the middle of the road. Doors wide open, middle of the night, nothing inside the car, cleaned out, wiped down, everything. And they told Charlesy, well, it's not illegal for them to leave their car like that. So she was really discouraged about reaching out to anybody. She didn't know who to go to, who to ask for help.
Was the car found in Longview, the Longview area?
The car was found close by the bay, the water park. So it wasn't far from there, like a straight shot from Longview.
Okay, right.
And they just dumped it there, yeah.
Okay. It must have just arrived there then, right? They must have had it for those couple of days, you think, that whoever did this?
Yeah. Keith and Michael had left that night in Keith's car, and then 2 days later it was found in the middle of the night, middle of the road.
And they probably have no
somebody
recordings of that.
Drove it, threw it in the park, flung the doors open, and took off running.
And there was no recordings of anyone at that point leaving the vehicle?
I don't know.
Never heard anything. Okay.
I can't get any information from the police department because it's still an open case. And the little bit that I have gotten from them, I got from the prosecuting attorney's office, not the police department. Because the missing person report was filed out of Grandview. So Grandview Police Department wasn't supposed to be investigating it. And then when they were found in Kansas City, the Kansas City part of Longview. So then KCPD took over. Sam Delosier, they were looking for him for questioning in Michael and Keith's disappearance. And he was in a stolen vehicle. The police, Kansas City Police Department, seen him driving somewhere downtown Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up in a car chase, the police chasing him.
Right.
He ran into a parked car and killed somebody in that car.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went to jail.
And the story you just told me about the wreck, I read that in the Kansas City Star also. Yeah, because I was excited thinking, okay, they had him. And I think I told you at the visual. I was like, great, they have him. So now they can, get the information they need for Michael and Keith and, get that all sorted out. I remember thinking as I was reading, but evidently.
No.
Yeah. No.
I don't, as to my knowledge, the last I knew from the prosecuting attorney, they haven't even questioned Sam in Michael and Keith's case.
Wait, ever?
No.
Nope. So it's just, so anyway, I was told that. And then we all, and when I say all, me, Charlesy, Michael's ex-girlfriend, her name's Stormy, and all of Keith's family, well, the ones that they could get in contact with, all went into Grandview Police Department to be interviewed. And later that was in the morning. Later that afternoon, they took Stormy, Michael's ex-girlfriend, down to KCPD, and she identified Sam. And then the very next morning, I got a phone call from, I believe her name's Shannon, from Channel 4 News. She called me and told me that they found Michael and Keith's bodies out at Longview.
You know what? I'm trying to remember if it was this case. You guys did find out through I think I was watching it on the news when someone showed up at the scene, just finding out that way and not being told by the police department. I think I
Right.
remember that.
We weren't told anything by the police department until that was on the 15th, that day that the news station called me. So I called my mom, my sister, my husband, my other daughter. I called Michael's dad, and I even reached out to Keith's family, and we all came out there. None of us were told anything until the detective came to Charles's house the next day.
That's terrible.
But the woman with the news, I believe her name was Shannon, I think. She told me that it was Michael and Keith.
How did she know? Did any of you go to the scene as they found them? Or, while they were there?
We were out at Longview Lake, but we couldn't go down they had it all blocked off and wouldn't let anybody go down there. They had it blocked off before. I don't know if you've ever been out there to Shelter 7, but there's a funeral home and a cemetery. And then you go down just a little bit farther and there's the riding stables, the horse place, and another shelter. So they had it blocked off before the funeral home. So we couldn't get any farther than the funeral home.
Who found them?
Well, I was told that it was a jogger.
A jogger?
Yeah. Down deep in the woods. That's not who found them. Because it was like 2-3 hours after Stormy identified Sam that they found Michael and Keith.
I ain't no jogger gonna jog down that path.
Yeah, and there was no way there was a jogger down there. But Stormy ID'd Sam, and then within a couple hours, they knew where Michael and Keith were. So Sam has been in jail since August 11th of 2018 and never questioned for Michael and Keith's murder. But he was convicted in January, and nothing's moved forward with Michael and Keith's case. So I'm really getting a little frustrated, and that's why I want to do what I can about putting Michael and Keith's name out there. I've done my own poking and prodding, and I found out a lot of information, and I've passed all that on to the police department, and nothing has happened. It's weird to me that the police can know the name of a person that was living, like Sam lived with his girlfriend at the time, and Sam came home that night and told his girlfriend what happened. And the police know his girlfriend's name, but they won't go question her.
They haven't questioned her either?
No.
Was Stormy out at Longview when we went to do that search?
Nope.
Another thing is I'm sure at the cemetery and the funeral home, they have cameras up there. I'm almost positive. About 2 weeks after they found Michael and Keith, Charlesy gets an envelope in the mail from that cemetery with Keith's driver's license in it, with a note saying that the groundsman found the driver's license out there by the pond when they were mowing the grass and thought that they would return it to the owner. So they mailed it to Charlesy's house. So something had to have been going on at the funeral home cemetery there.
By the pond.
By the pond. And I'm sure that they've got cameras, but I don't even think the police have gone out there. My husband went in and talked to him, and you know, at the time that they found the driver's license, they didn't even have any clue about them finding Michael and Keith out there.
I wonder how much more was out there.
Right.
We don't even know if they even scraped the pond there to see if there's any evidence in there. There has to be more than one person involved in it because between Michael and Keith, they're two big kids. I mean, they were stocky, and one person wasn't going to take both of them down at the same time.
Yeah,
especially to, I mean,
and to leave them where they were at, it wasn't just one person. It couldn't have been.
There was no way that it was one person to do it. Between Shelter 7 and Catty Corner, between the Shelter 7 and the funeral, the cemetery, there's a pond sitting way back there in the back. You had to get back there with a 4-wheel drive vehicle.
Yeah, they were found about I would say at least 3/4 of a mile off of any kind of path.
It's a beaten path. It's a horse path that horses only go through.
Okay. And what vehicle was he caught in? It was a truck?
A 4-wheel drive F-150, I do believe.
I do know that the police department's doing absolutely nothing. You know, I call them and they tell me we have a clear direction of where we're going, but they don't have enough to file charges.
You know, this is stupid. Enough is enough. How many murders do we have sitting here now today?
Over 700 unsolved.
Unsolved. It's time to throw the towel in. I guarantee that a lot of people feel the same way. Isn't anybody watching the news? Every night. There's another one. There's another one. And it don't matter whether you're black, white, Mexican. It doesn't matter. We all have a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad. We have somebody. Somebody out there loves somebody. It has to stop. We moved out here to the Lake of the Ozarks. In the middle of all this, we were moving. We missed it by 2 days.
And he was supposed to come with us.
He was supposed to come here.
Oh my God.
We signed on the 9th. Yeah. Disappeared on the 7th. We signed the papers on the 9th. And so we moved out here thinking that's going to be the best place. So our home hasn't really been a home. So it's been one of those things that
Anyway,
it's been hard. We've got a kid that we can't even say hello to anymore. And yet, KCMO wants to sit there and tell us, oh, we're heading on the right. Well, we're going in the right direction. What direction is that?
years later.
I mean,
Right.
it's not the direction we want you to go into. I like to sit in the courtroom too. I like to hear a guilty verdict. I mean, it don't bring nothing back, but it gives me some kind of pleasure.
I have tried for 4 years to let, you know, my faith be, or I've tried to have faith in the police department and the justice system, but they have done nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. It's all messed up. And at what point do I say enough is enough and I put everything out there and hope the pieces fall where they need to fall? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's stuck in between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
Because you're trying to do the right thing and have them do their jobs and help you.
and
Right.
and they're not, but you don't want to mess things up because that's what they're telling you. If you do anything, you'll mess up.
Right.
And you're frustrated.
And if I knew that it would do any good, I'd go down there and get the information that they need myself.
Well,
Somehow, some way.
and that's the problem. They won't tell us what information that they need because maybe we have it.
Yeah.
Right.
And I asked them that. I'm like, look, I know that you can't give me specifics, but can you give me like a direction to put my thoughts into? Like, do you need forensic evidence? Do you need DNA? Do you need, because maybe, do you just need a name? I've never been talked to except for the day after they found Michael and Keith. I went in and talked to the detective and just told him a little bit. They asked me a few questions and that was it. I know everything there is to know about my child's life. I know everything about his friends, his drug involvement, his, when he was clean, the laws that he broke, the criminal charges, I know everything. And we could maybe point them in the right direction, but they can't even give me that.
And they have not questioned you again since the day.
Nope.
All those.
And then once after that, they had me take Charlesy in to ID a gun, to positively ID Keith's gun.
So where do they find that? Do you know?
I have no clue.
That's interesting because I wouldn't have thought they would have left it with them. I mean, the car was clean, so I wonder where they got that. Was it his gun? Do you know?
Charlesy said it was, yes. Well, there's another component to it, but it has nothing to do with the murder itself. It has, so about 3 months after Michael and Keith were murdered, this girl called me and said, this girl that Michael went to high school with, and said, Lisa, I think Michael's the father of my son.
Oh.
And he's in state's custody. So can you try to get him out? So I contacted DFS in the county that he was in. And we went through a year and a half of DNA tests from, they got his blood card from the morgue, his DNA card from the morgue. Well, there wasn't enough DNA on that. So then I had to go in for a test. His dad had to go in for a test. And finally, a year and a half later, the test results came back that it was Michael's son. And then within 2 months, they adopted him out. Told me I couldn't see him, and they adopted him out.
Can I do that?
I can't believe that.
Yeah. He was 13 at the time. He's 16 now. It's not a day that goes by that I don't think about everything. I mean, from start to finish, it all runs through my head constantly. It's like a movie reel that will not stop. Oh, another thing, if I could add just a little tidbit, Jonathan Porter. Do you recognize that name? He's the young man that was working for Spire downtown Kansas City. It was his first day on the job. And somebody came up to him and asked him for a cigarette. And he told him, I'm sorry, I don't have any cigarettes. I don't smoke. And the guy shot him.
Really?
Killed him downtown Kansas City. I think it was April of 2018. But that's my cousin's son. So that's a third homicide in the family.
Oh.
And they have nothing.
Another one?
On.
You're kidding.
No. He was 20, I want to say 23, 24, first day on a job in Kansas City. He's from a small town north of, like even north of Cameron. and he'd come down here and worked for Spire first day downtown, and some guy asked him for a cigarette. He said, "I'm sorry, I don't have one. I don't smoke." The guy pulls out a gun and kills him. And they have no leads, no suspect, no nothing.
That's horrible. Well, we'll make sure that we include that if you don't mind.
No,
I think
I don't mind.
that's
I have to look that. I haven't heard about that one.
I guess it was April 24th, 2019 that Jonathan was killed.
Subcontractor working for Interest
April
Source
24th?
on a gas line replacement for Spine Energy near 9th Street in Brooklyn.
9th and Brooklyn.
okay.
But no, you guys, I mean, you guys do enough. You give us a place to talk about it and get it out there. There's not a lot of people there's not a lot of places you can go to like you guys to get stories out. And I really appreciate you coming out to the search party that night, even though I don't remember. They all remember you being there. I was just beside myself.
Were you there? Because I think
I was there.
Someone didn't arrive till later or something because so distraught, and I know it was a woman, but I don't remember.
That was me. I
Okay.
came late, but I was there. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it was all right.
Yeah. But my husband, I'm like, and Charles remembers you being there. My husband remembers you being there, and I'm like, you guys never told me that she was there.
I drugged my daughter, and then my parents, like, I'm not going to have you guys go on your own. So my parents came, so it was 4 of us. But yeah. I don't.
Well, I appreciate that.
No problem. Charlie was just begging so hard for just anything, anybody, and I was just like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and she was a wreck anyway, because she, like I said, she had just had a baby 3 weeks ago, and her hormones were all over the place, and then this, and her brother and her fiance all at once. It was pretty devastating for her. It was devastating for all of us, but it was doubly devastating for poor little Charleston. And she'll never be the same.
I'm sure. I mean, them hanging up the phone together and not being able to get them back. I mean, I've had situations like that, but not anything close or near what you all went through. And I remember that fear when you can't get a hold of the person. So maybe that's what got me, I just the panic. Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to us ramble on.
Well, try to enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Thank you.
Guys have a safe weekend.
Thank you so much.
You all the same.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
There's a suspect in Michael and Keith's murder who's in jail on a unrelated charge, and the family is not even aware if he has been questioned. They're not aware of him being questioned on this particular case. And because it's an open case, there's not a lot of information that we can talk about, or on top of that, what the family has even been given. But the family is under the impression that Sam has not been questioned on the murder of Michael and Keith.
Correct.
But Sam was the last person to see them. They were lured to Longview.
Right.
And then disappeared until their bodies were found. And then on top of that, the police did not notify them that they had been found. They found out from the media, which is totally heartbreaking. Getting a phone call from a journalist saying, "Your son's been found." It's awful.
Yeah. No, I don't understand that. It's just a phone call. I mean, even if it wasn't them, I always recall that police call the families and are like, hey, there's just let you know, there's a body has been found, and it could be Michael and Keith. You know, just.
No, and I don't understand how the media even found out beforehand. I mean, were they tipped off?
Yeah, had it been.
Which.
And I think, like I said, I think I remember it being on TV, and I remember thinking, what the hell? What an awful way to find out, you know?
Would be very traumatic.
It would be.
Hearing the anguish in their voices talking about this and how frustrating they are that they're not moving forward. It's been all these years. It's like, what is wrong?
But it sounds like at least they're getting we're on the right path. At least they're getting some type of answer. I mean, most of them that we talk to, they don't even get that, so.
Yeah, that would just be the most frustrating thing to hear. Like, I can imagine they don't want to hear that anymore. Just do it. Just do the job.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm wondering if, like, we get questioned actually, why we do this, and we don't, knock on wood, have any like relation or reason pretty much why we do this. But if everyone would have that type of, I'm not saying like kudos to us, I'm just saying, do you really have to have a relation into why you're involved in something? It's how it usually seems, in my opinion. If people would just put themselves in other people's shoes, and I don't know what it feels like, but I can imagine how it feels like. And if everyone could just imagine what they're going through and then pull their weight, I think maybe things would be a lot different. I don't know, but we just have lack of human decency. It seems like, and now as I go along doing this, I feel it more and more. The lack of people wanting to be involved. Like when Charlesy was just she was begging for someone to drive her to Longview just to see if those men were still, there, because they weren't answering their phone. Lack of wanting to flip with someone around to give CPR. I could just keep going probably.
With all the different cases, right?
Yeah, it's just.
Every single case that we have covered, there's been just disappointment in the way we treat each other when people need help.
I wonder where that went. If one day I should need help, you know what I mean? I think that's what I am always thinking. One day I may need someone's help, and hopefully someone will be there to help me.
Another thing that bothers me is how the police didn't take the case seriously when they were saying that they were missing, and they're like, oh, well, they're druggies.
They're drugs, so if they're on a binge, then so be it.
Right. So, but I don't like that. It shouldn't matter your lifestyle. That doesn't mean that you can't go missing, or you should take every case seriously. It shouldn't matter.
Right. So Grandview did not take the missing persons case right away, right? They said to come back in 48 hours.
Yeah.
I thought that was done with. I remember in Grandview that if it doesn't matter about the time like that, I mean, what they normally do, if you have any type of reason why this person may be missing, then they should do a missing persons report. That's what I always thought.
Well, sometimes the police say that, like, oh, we don't have that 24-hour or 48-hour
window.
Yeah. But yet families are told that, though. It's like,
so I wonder if it's what per officer, like, I don't really feel like taking.
Well, it's definitely per jurisdiction. It's not like it's like that even in the same state, but they knew they were on the phone. They said they'd call back. They did it. They went missing, and that wasn't good enough.
That doesn't make sense.
That wasn't good enough to make a missing persons report. And then when they were missing, it's like, well, then they have that they're adults. They can do that.
I'm curious to know, honestly, what it is in Grandview, because where that wasn't there, where you had to wait. So now I'm curious to know then, is it because the officer didn't want to do the paperwork and hoping that they would show up and so they didn't have to do the legwork?
Maybe. But even when they found the car, they were like, well, they have the right to leave their car wherever they want. You're like, well, why would they have left their car parked that way, in the road? And then
116th and Winchester. Yes, I remember that. But yeah, I mean, I always leave my car like that when I want to go to Walmart.
This is too big a mystery for me.
It's complete.
And actually, no, it's not. You can't leave your car like that in the middle of the road. You're freaking blocking traffic. That doesn't make sense.
Well, apparently it did make sense to that officer. It made perfect sense, and it was completely normal. And then they didn't even search the whole area because the license was mailed to them. I mean, it's like, it's just complete lack of doing anything. That's it. And I wish I could do that with my job. I wish I could just sit there and just do the bare necessity. So there's a lot of frustration with this case, with all of our cases, but just when you feel like they're not doing their jobs. When they're not doing their jobs, and then when they have a suspect in jail, and yet, they're not questioning him, they haven't even questioned the family again. Get some new perspective on things, maybe they can remember things. The family is completely willing to cooperate and give the police officers and the detectives, whatever, any information they have. They're begging for information. I mean, they're begging for justice. Begging. I'm begging. She's not. She's just sitting there.
It is frustrating. It's very frustrating.
So if you have any information, you can remain anonymous, 816-474-TIPS. There's a reward for the arrest and conviction of the people responsible for this. Please like, please share.
Subscribe.
Please subscribe.
And then share.
Subscribe, then share.
Or the other way.
Like, please, so that we can get these cases out. Again, with over 700 unsolved homicides in Kansas City, it's just...
Our next show
is we're going on a field trip.
So it'll be a surprise, we won't say. But until next time, thank you for watching.
Thanks.